Most mornings I watch people lean on their coffee and rush past a tiny brown bud that could help their blood vessels think more clearly, calm a jumpy stomach, and soften nagging aches within a single week. Yet there is a quiet risk hiding in plain sight, because if you use cloves the wrong way, you get little benefit and sometimes irritation. I have spent decades at the bedside and in the clinic, and the small step I want you to try is safe for most adults because after breakfast, take 2 fresh whole cloves and chew them slowly so the warm spice meets your saliva, then swallow and move on with your day. And never take clove essential oil by mouth. Clove carries a natural compound called eugenol that scientists at major American centers study for antioxidant and soothing effects, and global health authorities describe an acceptable daily intake in plain language as roughly 2.5 milligrams for each kilogram of body weight, which for a typical adult aligns with about 2 whole cloves when the buds are fresh and aromatic. The advantage of this habit is that it is inexpensive, accessible, and easy to weave into a morning routine. And when paired with a balanced diet and regular movement, it may support calmer digestion, healthier vessel function, and steadier energy through the day. The limitation is that it is not a cure, and it can irritate the mouth or the stomach in sensitive people, and because eugenol can slow clotting anyone on blood thinners or preparing for a procedure, should talk with a clinician first. You do not need heat or heavy processing because high heat can dull the very notes you are trying to preserve. So choose whole buds with a strong aroma and skip old powder that smells tired. I remember asking a retired teacher in Ohio to try this after years of waking with a sour stomach. And what she noticed was not a miracle, but a quiet lift in comfort and energy that made better choices easier the rest of the day. That is what we are after, not hype, but a reliable nudge grounded in careful research from national health agencies and respected academic hospitals. If you want a fair test, start with 2 buds after breakfast for 1 steady week. Jot down how you sleep, how your joints feel, and how often cravings sneak up on you, and keep the rest of your routine steady so the signal is clear. The promise is practical, and the risk is manageable when you respect dose and quality. And in the next part, I will show you how that very first day often sets the stage with antioxidant protection your blood vessels and brain cells appreciate, along with the simple mistake that can turn a good habit into sawdust. Headlines love to promise miracles, and that is exactly where people get hurt. So let me start with the risk and the remedy in the same breath. If you treat a spice like a cure, you set yourself up for disappointment. But if you handle it like a small daily tool under the same care you give your morning medicines, it can become a steady ally. Here is the simple step that keeps you safe and makes this worth your time. Choose fresh whole buds instead of tired powder. Use a modest amount after breakfast. Chew slowly so the warm aroma meets saliva, and never swallow essential oil because the oil is far too concentrated for ordinary use. I say this as someone who has watched fads rise and fall across many years with patients in American clinics, and the habits that last are always the ones pinned to careful research and gentle consistency. In cloves, the leading character is eugenol, a plant-based compound that researchers in national institutes and academic hospitals have explored for antioxidant and soothing effects on tissues, and respected medical centers in the United States have written clear summaries for the public so older adults can understand where the promise is and where the limits are when we stay within culinary use. Picture oxidation as rust on a garden fence, and think of eugenol as the coat of paint that slows the rust rather than a machine that strips it away in a single day. That image will keep your expectations honest and your results safer. The advantage of this approach is straightforward. It costs very little, it fits the rhythm of a normal morning, and it lets the mouth and stomach meet the spice gently after a meal. The limitation is equally important. Some mouths feel warmth or tingling. Some stomachs prefer not to meet strong spice on an empty belly, and anyone who takes a medicine that affects clotting or is preparing for a procedure needs a quick conversation with a clinician first, because safety is part of the outcome we are protecting. When I review evidence to guide my own advice, I look for work that compares extracts to whole spice, and I return to the same practical conclusion: the closer we stay to the kitchen, the fewer surprises we meet, and the more likely the habit survives beyond a single week. This is why I ask you to start with fresh aromatic buds, a modest moment after breakfast, and a steady schedule you can record in a small notebook, so the data of your own life can link the science on paper to comfort in your body. Stay with me, because next I will walk you through what often unfolds over the first day, when antioxidants begin to steady the lining of blood vessels and offer quiet support to tired nerve cells, and I will show you the ordinary mistake that silently erases these gains. Day 1 is the crossroads where people either unlock the good or lose it without realizing. And that is the risk I want to pull into the light, because when you heat cloves hard or grab the wrong form, you muffle the very antioxidants you came for. Yet with one quiet change this morning, you can help your vessels and nerves settle by the evening. The move is simple, and it is the same advice I give in American clinics to older adults who want safe steps. Choose fresh whole buds, chew them slowly right after breakfast, so the warm spice meets saliva and the compounds have a gentle path in. Then keep the rest of your routine steady so you can hear what your body is saying. I have practiced long enough to know the first day is not a miracle. It is a spark that begins a cascade. And sparks matter when a body has carried decades of small insults from stress, sugar swings, and late nights. Researchers at national institutes and academic hospitals have studied the main clove molecule, called eugenol, for its ability to neutralize free radicals and calm irritated tissues, and large nonprofit medical centers have written plain language summaries that explain how culinary use may support the lining of blood vessels and the comfort of the gut when it is done with respect for dose. Picture your vessel lining as a weathered fence, and imagine these plant compounds as the first thin coat of paint that slows the rust rather than a thick shell that appears in a single afternoon. That picture keeps expectations honest and results safer. The advantage on day 1 is practical and often noticeable in small ways. A steadier stomach after meals, a bit less afternoon fog, a softer dip in mid-morning energy, and the habit costs very little and folds into what you already do after breakfast. The limitation deserves equal space. Some mouths feel heat, some stomachs want food first, and anyone taking a medicine that changes clotting or preparing for a procedure needs a short conversation with a clinician, because eugenol can slow the way blood firms up. I remember a retired bus driver in Pennsylvania who agreed to try this and wrote in his pocket notebook that the day felt ordinary except for a calmer afternoon, and that quiet line is exactly the kind of change I hope you feel, because steady and ordinary are the ground where better evenings begin. Keep in mind that heavy heat can dull delicate notes, so reach for whole aromatic buds instead of old tired powder, and give your morning a little room so your body can register the difference. The promise today is a calm shift you can feel without forcing it. The risk is manageable when you respect dose and quality, and the next step is simply to repeat the practice so the spark has something to build on. Stay with me, because tomorrow we will look at how the immune system often wakes up when cloves are used properly, and I will point out the common mistake that quietly erases that progress. Day 2 is when many older adults quietly lose ground to germs they never see, and that is the risk I want to bring into the light before breakfast, because a drowsy immune system leaves the front gate unguarded, yet with a small steady habit, you can rouse those guards without harsh tricks. Here is the step worth your time today. Choose fresh whole buds and chew them slowly after your morning meal, so the warm spice meets saliva and brushes the first stretch of your throat. Then drink a little water and move on with your day, while the rest of your routine stays steady. I share this as someone who has walked American hospital halls for many years and watched winter after winter move through families. And what endures is not a loud promise, but a calm routine supported by careful work from national research institutes and respected academic hospitals, and explained in plain language by large nonprofit medical centers. The leading clove molecule, called eugenol, has been explored for antimicrobial and soothing effects in everyday places, like the mouth, the upper airways, and the gut where our inner community of microbes lives. And when we keep use within culinary bounds, we often see tissues behave with more calm and less invitation to troublemakers. Imagine your immune team as neighborhood watch, with scouts that sniff out problems and first responders who step in quickly. And think of gentle clove exposure after food as a way to make the neighborhood a little less friendly to uninvited guests, while reminding the scouts to walk their route. The advantage many notice by the second day is simple and human: a throat that feels less scratchy, a belly that settles after meals, a touch more afternoon pep, and the habit is inexpensive and easy to keep, even on busy mornings. The limitation deserves equal space. Cloves are not a force field. Sensitive mouths or stomachs may protest. And because eugenol can slow clotting anyone on a medicine that affects blood thickness or heading toward a procedure, needs a quick word with a clinician before changing anything. I remember a widower in Michigan who kept a pocket notebook by the coffee maker and wrote one line each day. On the second day, he wrote "throat easier" and "appetite steady." And while that sentence would never make a headline, it was exactly the kind of quiet progress that let him keep his lunch walk through the cold months. Please skip the common traps. Do not chase stronger flavor with heavy heat, because high heat can dull delicate compounds and turn a good plan into little more than fragrance. And do not stack a pile of new habits on top of this one, because then you will have no idea what helped. So keep your week honest and let your body speak. The promise today is a gentle lift for the front line, a calmer tone in the tissues that greet the outside world, and a reminder that consistency beats force every time. The risk stays manageable when you respect dose, choose quality, and listen to your own signals. Stay with me, because tomorrow we will talk about how day 3 often steadies blood sugar swings and clears the mental fog. And I will show you the small choice that quietly amplifies or erases that gain. Day 3 is the place where good intentions often slip. Because when people heat spices hard or take them on an empty stomach, the very steadiness they hoped for begins to wobble by midday. So I want to hand you the risk and the remedy at once. A small morning change can help your sugar swings settle without setting you up for a crash. After breakfast, choose fresh whole buds and chew them slowly so the warm aroma meets saliva and the compounds have a gentle path inward. Then keep the rest of your routine steady and pay attention to how your body moves through the late morning and into the early afternoon. I have spent many years with older adults in American clinics who describe the same pattern: a short burst of focus followed by a fog that makes simple tasks feel heavy. And when we anchor this spice inside a balanced plate and a short daily walk, the pattern begins to soften. The principal clove molecule that researchers examine sits within a family of plant compounds known for easing low-grade inflammation and supporting the way cells respond to insulin, the hormone that invites sugar into the cell instead of letting it linger in the blood. Picture each cell as a small house on a quiet street, and think of insulin as the doorbell. On hard days, the bell rings and no one answers. With steady culinary clove use, alongside real food and movement, the porch light flickers on, and the door opens more willingly, not as a miracle, but as relief for tired doorways. The advantage many notice by this third day is modest and meaningful. The after-lunch slump is less sharp, cravings do not shout as loudly, and the mind stays clearer for the everyday choices that decide how a day feels. The limitation deserves equal space. This is not a cure, and it does not replace medicine. The effect is gentle and grows with consistency, and anyone who uses diabetes medication needs a quick talk with a clinician before changing diet or routine, because safety is part of the outcome we protect. For sensitive mouths or stomachs, it helps to take the buds right after a meal, or to crush them lightly into a spoon of plain yogurt so the spice arrives with a softer edge, and if irritation shows up, it is your cue to pause and check in. I remember a retired librarian in Arizona who kept a notebook by the fruit bowl. and wrote that the mid-morning haze did not roll in as hard, and she finally finished a crossword before lunch. That quiet win is the kind of progress that actually sticks. Keep heat low, skip old tired powder, and ride this habit next to a plate that offers protein and fiber, so your body has a slow, steady burn to lean on. The promise today is a smoother lane for energy and mood. The risk stays manageable when you respect dose quality and your own signals. And next we will look at the fourth day when the liver, your quiet pharmacist, steps into focus, and I will show you the ordinary kitchen mistake that can blunt that support. Day 4 is the moment when the quiet factory beneath your right ribs either gets a little breathing room or gets buried under chores. And that is the danger I want to set on the table, because when people chase stronger flavor with high heat or swallow concentrated oil, they hand the liver an extra stack of work it did not ask for. Yet with one small change, the same spice can offer steady support. The remedy is simple, and it is the one I use in American clinics. Choose fresh whole buds and chew them slowly after breakfast, so the warm notes meet saliva. Sip a little water. And never take essential oil by mouth, because it is far too concentrated for everyday use. I have watched older adults rely on their livers to perform quiet heroics year after year, sorting medicines, clearing leftovers from richer meals, and keeping the inner traffic moving. And the lesson from practice and from plain language summaries at respected medical centers is this: culinary clove can sit on the supportive side of the ledger when your other habits are kind. The principal plant molecule in clove has drawn researcher interest for its ability to ease oxidative stress and calm low-grade inflammation. And the kitchen translation is easy to picture: fewer sparks flying in the workshop, so the crew can do the real work with fewer interruptions. Think of your liver as a careful pharmacist that labels and shelves each parcel that arrives. And think of gentle clove use after food as a way to keep the aisles clear instead of dumping a flood of boxes at the door. The advantage many people notice around this day is small and honest: a little less heaviness after richer meals, a steadier comfort under the ribs, and a touch more willingness to take that short walk after lunch. And the habit stays affordable and friendly to a normal morning. The limitation deserves equal room. This is not a cure for liver disease, and it does not replace medical care. Sensitive mouths or stomachs may feel warmth or queasiness, and because eugenol can slow clotting anyone on a blood thinner or heading toward a procedure, needs a quick conversation with a clinician before changing anything. If you already live with liver concerns, invite your own doctor into the plan. And even for healthy adults, the rule is steady and small rather than more and hotter. I think of a retired mail carrier in North Carolina who kept a notebook by the sink and wrote that after the fourth morning, the heavy feeling after dinner felt quieter. Not gone, just quieter. And that kind of honest note is exactly what I trust, because it means the habit fits the shape of a real life. Please avoid the common mistake of boiling cloves into a harsh brew that tastes like a dare, because high heat can dull delicate compounds and leave your workshop with very little to show for the effort. And avoid piling on a stack of new supplements this same week so you can tell what helped. The promise today is a calmer rhythm for the organ that keeps score for the rest of you. The risk stays manageable when you respect dose, choose quality, and tuck the change inside a balanced plate and an early bedtime. Stay with me, because tomorrow we will turn to the heart and the vessels that carry your days, and I will show you how a simple choice can widen the path for circulation while avoiding the mistake that quietly narrows it again. Day 5 is the point where many older adults shrug and believe the heart simply has to strain with age. And that is the trap I want to expose. Because while years do leave their mark, much of the extra load comes from quiet inflammation and stiffening blood vessels, and the same cupboard spice you may have ignored can offer those vessels a gentler rhythm. The step is simple and safe. Take fresh whole buds and chew them slowly after breakfast with a sip of water. Skip the boiling pot, and never swallow oil because the concentrated form is far too harsh. Just let the warm spice meet saliva and travel in its natural shape. I have sat with countless patients through blood pressure checks, stress tests, and quiet talks after long winters, And the lesson I lean on from practice and from summaries at respected American heart centers is clear. Culinary use of clove can be a supportive companion when it rides alongside balanced meals, daily movement, and proper sleep. The main molecule scientists focus on sits within a group of plant compounds that ease oxidative stress and cool low-grade inflammation in vessel walls, making it easier for those vessels to open when the heart calls for flow. And the kitchen picture is simple: a highway with fewer traffic jams, so the pump does not have to push as hard. The advantage many of my patients mention around the 5th morning is subtle, but welcome: a calmer pulse, less pounding after a climb of stairs, steadier energy through late morning. And the habit costs almost nothing. The limitation is just as important. This is not a replacement for prescribed medicine. Anyone living with heart disease must keep their doctor close, and sensitive stomachs may want to soften the spice with oatmeal or yogurt. I remember a retired steelworker in Ohio who kept a small notebook and wrote that his chest felt calmer on the walk to the corner store, and that kind of quiet note is the real treasure because it signals a change that fits life as it is. Do not fall for the common mistakes. More heat does not mean more benefit. High heat strips away the very compounds you need, and stacking new pills at the same time muddies the waters of what truly helps. The promise today is a lighter load on the heart and vessels. The risk stays modest when you respect dose and context. And tomorrow, we will turn the page to day 6, where researchers have studied how these plant compounds may even call on the body's own repair crews to guard against the first steps of cancer. Day 6 is the point where I must speak the word most people dread: cancer. And that is the trap I want you to face with open eyes. Because the changes in our cells begin quietly years before a scan ever finds them, and many men and women assume nothing can be done until it is too late. Yet with one steady habit you can give your body a stronger foundation. The habit is the same small act I have asked of you all week. Fresh whole buds chewed slowly after a meal with a sip of water. No boiling that strips, no oil that overwhelms. Only a gentle meeting with saliva in its natural form. I have walked with American families who looked back in regret that they had not built protective patterns earlier. And I remind them that prevention is not a single leap, but a row of ordinary steps. Researchers at respected institutions have examined how eugenol and its plant companions may ease inflammation and support the body's DNA repair crews. And the way I explain it in the kitchen is this: the librarians inside each cell get more time and light to keep the books of your genetic code legible. Picture your DNA as shelves of books in a quiet library, and think of each plant compound as a careful hand that wipes the dust from the pages before they smudge. The advantage many notice by this 6th morning is modest yet meaningful: less nagging ache, calmer digestion, steadier mood. And while that does not sound like a miracle, it builds the ground where resilience can grow. The limitation is just as important. Cloves are not a cure. They do not replace screening. They do not erase risk. And anyone with a diagnosis or on medicines that affect clotting must keep their care team involved. I recall a retired teacher in Florida who wrote in her notebook that her belly felt calmer and her sleep deeper on this 6th night. And while her words made no claim about cancer, they captured exactly what matters: a body less friendly to damage. Guard against the common mistakes. Do not overheat the spice. Do not swallow oil. Do not stack supplements without clarity. And never skip the appointments where your doctor can see what you cannot. The promise today is not a miracle but a margin, a little more room for your cells to do their quiet repairs. The risk stays modest when you respect dose and context. And tomorrow, we will walk into the 7th day, where the story turns to pain and inflammation, and how the same spice can whisper relief if you give it the chance. Day 7 is the stage where so many older adults sigh and accept that pain is the tax of aging. And that is the trap I want to challenge. Because while years do bring stiffness and slower healing, much of the ache comes from a steady hum of inflammation that can be quieted if you give the body the right signal. The habit is still plain and safe. Take fresh whole buds and chew them slowly after a meal with a sip of water. No concentrated oil, no tired powder from the back shelf, and no harsh boiling that strips away the delicate compounds. I have walked beside men and women in their 60s and 70s who lived with daily knee pain or woke each morning with stiff backs, and what I told them was, never that clove erases pain, but that it nudges the volume knob of inflammation, turning the sound down enough for the body to move again. Researchers at respected American institutions have examined eugenol for its anti-inflammatory and soothing qualities, and the kitchen translation is easy to picture. The blaring speaker of inflammation shifts to a softer background hum that no longer drowns out life. The advantage many describe around the 7th day is small but genuine: a knee that nags less after a block of walking, a grip that feels steadier when twisting a jar, a lower back that rises from a chair with less protest. And because the habit costs almost nothing, it is easier to keep alive. The limitation is just as clear. This is not a substitute for prescribed medicine. Sensitive stomachs may complain, and anyone on blood thinners or preparing for surgery needs a word with their clinician before adding this to the routine. I remember a retired farmer in Kansas who kept a small notebook by his lamp and wrote on the 7th night knees, "Not gone, but kinder." And that honest line is exactly the kind of modest shift that matters, because a body that feels a little less punished is a body more willing to move and reclaim moments of freedom. Guard yourself against the mistake of chasing quick fixes, swallowing concentrated oils, or expecting an overnight miracle, and instead give the quiet compound room to work over time. The promise today is a softer soundtrack for your joints and muscles. The risk stays modest when you respect dose and context. And next we will talk about how to use this practice correctly and consistently so the benefits extend well beyond a single week. This is the stage where people either seal the benefits of the week or undo them without realizing. And that is the risk I want to hold up to the light. Because the common errors of chewing too many buds, boiling them into a bitter brew, or swallowing concentrated oil can flip a safe ally into a strain on your stomach, your liver, or even your blood. The safer path is ordinary and clear. Reach for fresh whole buds with a strong aroma. Chew one or two slowly after a meal with a sip of water. Let the warmth meet saliva in its natural rhythm. And never take essential oil by mouth, because it is far too strong for everyday use. I have seen men and women in their 60s and 70s who thought more must be better, and within days they reported nausea, burning in the chest, or easy bruising, and when we stepped back to the simple form, those troubles faded. Scientists at respected American institutions describe an acceptable daily intake in everyday terms that fits the gentle use of a few whole buds, not handfuls, not extracts. Simply, the spice in the form it has always been. Imagine a garden. A few seeds in healthy soil grow into steady plants. But pour the whole bag and the ground suffocates. That is the difference between respect and excess. The advantage of this habit is safety, simplicity, and the space to feel the subtle gains without noise. The limitation is the temptation to chase faster results with stronger doses, and that is where harm often creeps in. I think of a retired nurse in California who confessed she had tried swallowing clove oil capsules from an online ad, and within a week, she was in my office dizzy and sore with a restless stomach, her notebook covered in complaints. But when she returned to whole buds, the pages slowly filled with calmer and steadier. Please guard against the traps. Skip the oils, skip the powder that smells flat, and skip the belief that more is better. The promise today is that when you respect dose and form the spice, remains a quiet friend to your body. The risk stays low when you keep that boundary, and tomorrow I will show you how to fold this practice into the rhythm of daily life so the benefits last well beyond the first week. This is the moment where many people quietly lose what they worked for, and that is the trap I want you to see clearly, because starting bold for a week and then forgetting the habit leaves the body unsettled and the benefits slipping away. The answer is not to push harder or feel guilty. It is to tie the habit to what you already do so it runs on its own. Keep the jar of fresh buds next to the coffee pot or the glass of water you reach for each morning. Chew one or two slowly after breakfast. Sip a little water, and then write a single line in a notebook about how you feel that day. I have walked with older adults who insisted they could never hold a routine, yet once we anchored it to a rhythm they already had, the practice carried on month after month until it simply became part of life. Researchers at respected American institutions remind us that small, steady habits protect better than bursts of dramatic change. And the kitchen picture is easy. A wooden bridge built plank by plank stands longer than a tower thrown together in one night. The advantage of this approach is that the habit becomes part of your rhythm. You feel the quiet gains without effort, and it costs nothing more than a few seconds. The limitation is the human pull of impatience, the desire for variety, or the temptation to quit once the pain softens. And that is why writing it down or sharing with a partner matters, because memory fades, but accountability lasts. I remember a retired principal in Texas who kept her jar of buds on the windowsill beside her tea kettle, and each morning as the water heated she chewed them and jotted one word in her notebook. And by the end of the season, the pages spelled out a story of calmer joints and steadier mornings. And she never once had to force herself because the kettle became her reminder. Guard yourself against the mistake of waiting for crisis or chasing novelty, because it is the small, steady choices that guard the ground beneath your feet. The promise today is that when repeated with care, this spice shifts from task to companion. The risk is that without tying it to routine, the gains drift away. And in the final part, I will close the loop, showing how 7 days are just the doorway, and why sharing your own story may become the strongest medicine you offer. This is the final step where many believe the journey is over. And that is the quiet danger I need you to see, because 7 days are not the finish line. They are the doorway. If you stop now, the body slips back, the small wins fade, and the old aches creep in again. But if you carry forward the simple act of chewing fresh whole buds after breakfast with a sip of water, you give your cells and your vessels a steady companion for the years ahead. I have walked with countless patients who began with this one change, and when we opened their notebooks months later, the pages spoke of calmer stomachs, lighter steps, steadier moods, and none of it came from force, only from gentle repetition. The research from respected American institutions echoes the same refrain. It is the quiet, steady habits that shield us more than dramatic experiments. And the picture in the kitchen is plain. A wall of bricks built one by one will outlast a tower thrown together overnight. The advantage of treating these 7 days as a beginning is that it frees you from chasing miracles and shows you that progress feels ordinary before it ever looks extraordinary, and it costs nothing more than a moment in the morning. The limitation is the human pull toward boredom, the temptation to stop once the novelty wears off. And that is why I ask you to write it down, to share it with someone close, to speak your story out loud, because memory is fragile, but shared words grow strong. I think of the retired bus driver who wrote of a calmer afternoon, the teacher in Florida who slept more deeply, the farmer in Kansas who felt his knees a little kinder, and the principal in Texas who marked her mornings with steadier energy. Each line alone was small, but together they formed a chorus of resilience. Do not believe that a week was the end. Let it be the spark, and allow the habit to take its place beside your coffee, your walk, your rest, until it feels like second nature. The promise today is larger than a spice. It is about reclaiming agency in your health, one quiet act at a time. And the only risk is quitting before the deeper strength arrives. So I invite you now to carry this practice forward, to leave a note of your own experience, to let your voice join this community, because health is not a solo road. It is a path we walk together.